Okay, in this video, we'll be talking about the distance formula. This is a little bit different from the distance formula 1 worksheet in the fact that we'll be using negative numbers, okay? And a lot of these numbers will end up being double negatives by the time you get them into the formula. So this is what's tricky about this assignment, is the use of these double negatives. Okay, first what we're going to do is review the formula for the distance formula. And let me zoom in just a little bit farther. Okay, so the distance formula says this: we take the x from the second point, P2, we're going to subtract the x from the first point, which is a negative 12, and we're going to square it. I'll do the same thing with the y values. I'm going to take the y from the second ordered pair and subtract the y from the first ordered pair. And make sure you use your parentheses, okay? And then we're going to add those two together. That's the formula that you need to use. And so let's go ahead and we're going to replace the numbers. So I have x2 is 20. I'm going to subtract a negative 12. Then the parentheses closes. That first one is a subtraction key. The next one right there is a negative key. Okay, so depending on what type of calculator you're using, maybe you can use both subtraction, maybe you have to use a white negative key. And then make sure you put your square on the outside of that parentheses. Now for the y2, I have a negative 21. I'm going to subtract a negative 20. You see that? So that's a white negative key. So I have a negative in front of the 21. I have a subtraction key. And then I have a negative in front of the 20. And then make sure you type it in your calculator, just like I'm showing there on the screen. It'll take care of all those sign changes for you, and you don't have to worry about them. Okay, that's really, really important. So let me pull up my calculator here. Let's see here. Oh, I'm going to rewrite this thing again here. So this is what we're going to type in our calculator. Let me make this a little bit clearer where I get rid of all that negative and subtraction stuff. So that's what it's going to look like in our calculator. And that is what you're going to type in. Just like that. It will take care of all the signs for you. Like I said, it's going to give us the number that we need. So let me get out my calculator. Okay, parentheses, 20, subtract a negative 12, close parentheses, put my square there, just like I have there, add, put my starting parentheses, a negative 20, subtract, make sure you put your negative 21 minus the negative 20, make sure you put your square, and you see my negatives and my subtractions on the inside there. There's a negative, subtraction, then a negative. Make sure you put your parentheses the way that I have them there on your screen as you use your calculator. And it's going to combine all that into one answer. It's going to take care of all the signs, and you won't mess up, because that's where a lot of people are having their issues as I look at their answers in School City. Okay, so that combines both those numbers into 1025. Okay, that's what all that equals. So now I'm going to take the square root of 1025 on my calculator. Let's see what that equals. So let me pull back up my calculator. Now I'm just going to use my up caret key and 0.5 for my decimal. And that takes the square root, so it's 32.01. Now I'm going to round that to the nearest tenth, so that 5 brings that 1 up to a 2. So 32.02. Now in School City, I changed the assignments to where it brings down a drop-down menu. If you do not see your answer in that drop-down menu of choices, you've got the wrong answer. You need to go back and try it again. Okay, let's do number 2. So x2 subtract x1, we'll square it, and I will add y2 minus y1 quantity squared. That's why I'm using the parentheses. Okay, so we have a -5 subtract a -24. Now that subtraction comes from the formula, so don't get that confused. There's a 24, I square it. I'm going to add, I have a -13 for y2, and I will subtract that -24. And remember, that subtraction comes from the formula. Now we just pull up our calculator. Just like I have it there on the paper, or there on the screen. That's what you need, just like this. Okay, so let me bring up my calculator. Let me see if I'll clear my screen here. Okay, so parentheses, I have a -5, subtract a -24, subtract, or add. Okay, add parentheses, I've got a -13 minus a -24 quantity squared. So -13, subtract a -24, and then I square that, and it's going to, calculator's going to combine that all into one thing, and both those numbers simplify to 4, I think it's 485, isn't it? 482. 482. Now I'm going to take the square root of 482, and that will be my answer for number 2. Now this is how you do this entire assignment. So if you know how to do 1 and 2, you know how to do the rest. So the answer was 482. I take that answer, I take the square root of it, I get 21.95. And because that is not a 5 or bigger, you see where that 4 is next to the 5, that 95, that 5 is going to stay. So that's the school city answer. And again, you're going to go to the drop down menu, see if it's there. If it's not there, then there's something wrong with it. So that's problems 1 and 2 on distance formula. And thank you for watching. And if you have any issues, just send me an email or get a hold of me on the blog.